Hello.
Hello,
Hello, everybody. This is Linda from Brain Education TV.
and I'm David from Body and Brain.
Yay! We brought our good friend David back for another live.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yes, it's always good to have David in our conversations that talk about more about brain education practices. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Everything seems to be working.
Yes.
How's everybody today? Tuning in. I'm excited about talking about this topic.
Yeah, today's topic is something that's really important to our practice. So before we start, could you guys type in the chat your name, where you're tuning in from? We always like to see where you guys are coming in from all across the world.
Yeah, you have a global audience, which is good.
Yes. All right, so those of you who are new to our YouTube live, I just wanted to let you know we have a super chat function. So if you're somebody who's a fan, who's been watching some of our videos and you want to contribute, then please click the little rectangular box under the place where you chat with a currency symbol based on where you're located. If you click that, you can donate a small amount to our channel to help fund our contents. Any and all donations are very, very much received with gratitude.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so let's get started. And yeah, while we talk about this topic today, please feel free to type anything that you want, where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions, comments, or anything you'd like to say about the topic, then please do so at any time.
Yeah, I wonder if people have heard about this topic before.
I know, right? It's very, very new. So
it's actually also very ancient.
Right. It's thousands of years old.
But to many people, it may be new.
It's new to most people. Yeah. So what is that topic today, David?
Today's topic is Hongik.
Hongik.
Hongik. Oh, there's some unfamiliar words suddenly. Hongik. So Hongik, which comes from Korea.
Yes.
It's kind of a philosophy. It's a philosophy or it's a principle, and it most often refers to education. So what is it that Hongik means? Hongik means widely beneficial. So widely beneficial in terms of education, kind of education where the person who's learning is not just memorizing facts and developing their personal skills to be successful in their career only. They're supposed to be educated so that they can benefit the whole community. Like that's an inherent part of what they are learning. And I think that's really cool.
Yes. So can we all repeat? Hongik.
Hongik. Hongik. Oh, you could write it down in Korean and then show them the characters.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea.
Hongik. So traditionally, yeah, education, but there's a lot wider application of Hongik than just education in schools. It can also be like your culture is a Hongik culture. Your family is a Hongik family. Your government is a Hongik government. Everything can be Hongik because ultimately we all have to get along and work together. And that's what Hongik is about. So
where does this idea come from, David?
Where does this come from?
Yeah. So for people who have never heard this term before, like, is it, what language is this, Hongik?
I believe this is Korean. You might know a little bit better than I do about that, but this is from Korea. And then many people say that this was the founding philosophy from ancient times, so ancient Korea, that has been there for thousands of years. Yes.
So Hongik, basically, for those of you who are joining in, Hongik means benefiting all life, widely benefiting all life.
Yep. Widely benefiting. So you can be a Hongik person, a Hongik ingan. We often talk about that through our brain education, body and brain practice, that we're not just trying to become more flexible or be able to clear our mind for ourselves only, but to become a Hongik person who benefits all.
Right. So David mentioned that it comes from Korea, but the thing about it is, you know, I'm Korean and I feel like modern day people in Korea don't really know about this concept.
Really?
Yeah. Even though historically it comes from that area, and actually the country of Korea was founded on this idea of creating a Hongik society, a Hongik, which means a society that works to benefit all life. However, as Korea has modernized and adopted other cultures and ideas, it has lost the real meaning of the founding of the country. So modern Korean people don't really even know about Hongik.
So if you lived in Korea or if you just spoke Korean and you heard Hongik, what would you think of?
People would have heard of the word, but they wouldn't truly know what it means.
Okay, so there's a lot deeper meaning behind it.
Right.
Interesting.
Which we will talk about today.
Well, and then today's society, we have a lot of benefits from competition. I would say that there's a lot of competition built into our system. It's winners get more. And if you're a loser, you're meant to, you have to work harder, or you should get more education so that you can win. But something that I think of is brain education creator Ilchi Lee has often said, in that system, there's always a lot more losers than winners. Is that really the system that's going to make us all the happiest and healthiest?
Right. And in our success-driven society, we oftentimes just, when we want to do good for the world, we think about sacrifice. We think about altruism, giving to the community,
like
giving to
Mother
others.
Teresa.
Yes, giving to others unconditionally and just give. And I know many people try to live that kind of life, but if you're somebody who tries to give all the time, you will quickly realize that you get drained and you start to feel a little bit of resentment because you start thinking, okay, I'm giving so much care and love to other people, but what about me? I hear that a lot. People who are natural givers, they always say, what about me? Who takes care of me? And it's just a natural feeling that arises when, you just give, and you don't replenish yourself, and you try to find somebody who will replenish that. But
so naturally you look for someone else who's a giver.
Right. And then it creates this cycle of like, okay, I'm a giver, so I'm going to give everything to other people. And then now I want somebody to give back to me, which is typically how we operate in our society now.
But often that's really difficult because a lot of times, I don't know if this is everybody, but how about you guys? If you're a giver, sometimes it's hard to receive.
That's very true.
Giving is much more comfortable, but actually sitting still and let someone care for you is less natural.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I really love about Hongik is it's very different from sacrifice that we're used to thinking about, especially in the West, as a form of like model citizen, someone who sacrifices. The hero always sacrifices. They're good for the good of other people. But the clear difference between Hongik, it's like a fine line between Hongik and sacrifice, is that, remember in the chat, I also wrote, Hongik is widely benefiting all life. When we say all life, that includes my life. Because I'm part of the whole. I'm not separated from the whole.
So you don't have to just frankly, you don't have to like give yourself up and die or be miserable and weak and tired just because you want to give everything and help.
Right. And Hongik actually says you shouldn't be like that because that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And it's not good for you or the other person, because, if you're resentful that people aren't helping you, then that kind of resentment creates a certain kind of action and attitude and energy that you put out into the world and people around you as well.
Interesting. So I could see where there'd be some question like, okay, that's a great ideal. Ideally, yeah, I want to benefit me and everybody, but sometimes it feels like it's either me or them. Like, what can I do? What does it mean to actually be Hongik?
Yeah, so we think about a lot of like separation between me and other people. And then also I do want to mention that like a little bit more about sacrifice is that like, when you've ever been in a situation where you like give to somebody, of course there's a good mind that goes with it, but underneath at the very like bottom, there's also some kind of expectation. Like, because I gave you this much of my time and energy, I expect when I need it, I expect you to give me that kind of time and energy back. So there's this kind of like unspoken expectation and calculation. Because I gave you this much, I expect this much in return. And if this much I want back in return is not given to me, then we start getting angry, resentful, lonely,
depressed,
sad.
Yeah. That makes me think of another aspect of giving. I hear a lot of people say it's good karma. Okay, I'll just do this good thing and it's good karma. I think that's really wonderful and true. But, and this is something we're going to dig into a little, if I'm not connected to myself, then the idea that the universe is just going to give something back to me, I think is still also a little bit of separation.
Right. And then so now at this point, you guys might be wondering, okay, so then is there a difference between Hongik actions versus non-Hongik actions? And again, that's another kind of way that our brains like to separate.
Like if I act this way, I'm Hongik,
yes,
it's good. If I don't, I'm bad.
Right. Like this is a list of Hongik actions and this is a list of sacrifice actions. Like it's not like that at all. Hongik can also mean a mindset of how you view a situation. So for example, let's say that I gave David something. Because I found something and I was like, you know what? I remember David told me that he really, really wanted this pen. And now I saw this pen and it was on sale. And I just really felt like if I give this to him, he would feel really, really happy.
Maybe it's on sale because the clip is broken.
I don't know if they can see. So let's say that I gave David something. And typically what we would expect is, okay, I gave David this. So I kind of expect that if David finds something, that he will give me something back. However, a Hongik way to look at this is I gave something to David and then David reacted very, very joyfully to it. And he was so, so grateful. And I could feel that it was a sincere sense of gratitude and a sincere sense of joy. And I witnessed it. So then I could feel like, even though he didn't give me anything material back, he gave me a certain energy and sincere gratitude and joy that emotion itself is already gift enough for me. So in that I created this happiness and joy for this person, I already feel fulfilled because that made me feel good about myself and my actions.
What happens when the people that you're trying to help and care for don't appreciate your work?
Right. So
because I think that happens a lot.
That happens a lot too. So then that gets a little bit trickier because then you have to bring the focus back on yourself. This person might not react the way that I expected, and that's okay.
I might be like, hey, this isn't a perfect pen.
Right.
Not what I wanted.
That's his choice. He has the right to react however he wants. However, when I look at my actions with this kind of observing my action, and I see that my desire to help him and give him joy was very sincere, then just recognizing myself for that, even though he doesn't recognize it for me, when I look at my mind, when I look at my actions, I know that I did it with pure intention. And I feel good knowing that I brought forth that mind and acted from that mind.
That's interesting. So there's this sense that observing yourself is important.
Yes.
Wow. How about, I mean, you guys, have you had a moment when you really watched yourself and you said, wow, that was really good.
Right.
I'm impressed with myself,
right.
or I'm touched by my own sincerity. Often we can see somebody else do something and feel that, but it's really powerful if you, in my experience, if you feel that about yourself, it's really heartwarming and actually healing.
Right. And that really boosts your confidence.
And boost your confidence.
About yourself too.
I think that's a big part of Hongik too.
Right.
Being able to watch yourself and say, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be.
Yeah. So when we go a little bit deeper into the Hongik, there's this idea that in our society, there's separation. And then we talk about oneness too. But David, can you give a little bit of example about how we can view Hongik in terms of oneness rather than separation?
Well, I think what you just said, when we do our best, there's always a limit to how much we're going to get back physically, financially, even emotionally. There's a limit. So as long as we feel like and believe that we are separate, it's really, we're not making a profit energetically. We're giving more than we're getting back because that's just the nature of the world. People don't recognize it right away. But inside, Hongik is based on this idea that inside we are all one. That's not just a philosophy. That's a real thing that we are aware of, that exists in our brain as a sense of oneness. And sometimes you see it with people who have a deep connection, even deeper than emotion. They're just, they're family or they're deep friends. There's love there. There is a oneness which is very natural. And in that case, doing something for others with no expectation, unconditionally, feels really good and fulfilling to me. I never need any emotional appreciation about it. That is a natural thing that I believe we all have inside and we can develop.
Right.
But it takes time And it's natural not to feel that way all the time. Like sometimes be disappointed not to get that emotional appreciation right back. But I believe we can practice it and get there.
Right. And something that I also heard about Hongik that like really kind of made me rethink about how I treat people and view people is that we already know this sense of like oneness with each other. You know, that's a very like common idea and term that we, you know, talk about in society. But if you truly know that we are all one, then when I hurt somebody, because we are one, I am actually hurting myself. And then when I, on the opposite side, when I do good for somebody, if you truly can feel that we are one, then doing good to you is doing good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys felt that? I mean, yeah, take the other example, like you mentioned. Oh, everybody's in a tough situation. Maybe it's a heat wave, or maybe there's a drought or whatever. And I just got to look out for me. Oh, I'm safe. Oh, of course I feel relief when I'm safe, when other people are suffering. But am I really happy? Do I really have hope for life if I'm the only one who's safe and everybody else is suffering? I really think if we're sensitive, it's really clear we can't be happy that way.
Right.
And even if we suffer a little bit more, by trying to help others, we are actually more fulfilled, even if we suffer a little more.
Right. And this idea that, you know, in our modern day culture, we often feel like, oh, well, if this person's suffering, it has nothing to do with me because my life is great.
I'm sorry for them. Yeah. I mean, like, I wish things were good,
sorry,
but
guys.
I'm not going to increase my suffering because then we'd both be suffering. And what good would that be?
Right. So that exactly itself is this idea of separation that is causing so much isolation and hurt and suffering and loneliness out in the world, because now more so than ever, it's so funny because when we weren't as well off as a country or as a world, when we weren't as affluent as we are today or as comfortable in our society as we were today, we needed to help each other.
Well, and that's a much more recent thing in Korean history, as far as I know. American history, if we're talking very generally, it's been a few generations that have had a lot of wealth and technology, but in Korea, it's a much more recent experience of like having nothing. Yeah. And then a big change very quickly. Right.
So yeah, this idea of like, if you're suffering, that has nothing to do with me, that's that separation mentality. That is the opposite of Hongik. Hongik is a higher consciousness that really truly realizes, not just as an idea, but in your body, viscerally, and in your life, that because we are one, I cannot do hurt to you, because not because it's bad to the other person, but
yeah, not just morally.
Right, not just morally, but hurting you actually hurts me.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, right.
Whatever I would get beneficially out of it is not worth it. Right. But I think it's important to say that this is not just a personal development or morality system. This, in this day and age, this is really important because we live in a global village. We are not separate. Again, those illusions of separation are now breaking down even across different countries. If one country is experiencing an invasion and poverty and war, everybody is affected. Yeah. And we could be cynical and say, oh yeah, it affects our economy, but it doesn't really affect me. But think about it. If you're seeing news about that suffering and actual video from the ground and hearing those people's voices, don't you suffer? Aren't you connected to that? I know I am.
Right. Don't you feel an emotional wave because of that?
And want to do something. Yeah. So Hongik is not just, as I said, personally beneficial or my local community, but the problems we face as a society, we cannot solve those problems just with more technology or different government policies alone, although that could be important, or a little financial change. Like, we need a change in consciousness.
Right. So before we get into that, I just wanted to say hi to everyone who's been typing in the chat.
Yeah.
So hi, Judy and Core Love. And then Yu Myung-suk, hello from Korea. I think he's tuning in from Korea. Reiji, Village Nature, Maria, Bill, Bumper Bill. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for
Good to see
joining.
you. Oh, I see a comment here.
Okay.
The important thing is what we do. Pure motivation is the point, not attachment or expectation. I think so. I agree.
There is an ethereal net that connects everything. Prana is energy. We are energy. Yes, Maria, you're absolutely right. All your comments are absolutely true. So, speaking of that, like all the saints and sages have been kind of talking about this similar idea and concept, just in a different culture during a different time with slightly different words, but at the core of it all, it's all the same teaching.
Yeah, basically that we're all connected.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so David, you talked a little bit about consciousness before we went on this little break. So we mentioned that Hongik benefits other people, and then it's not just my life, but as the world in general. But maybe some of our audience members who this is their first time listening to Hongik, listening about Hongik,
right?
They may want to know, so this sounds great, but I want some concrete ways how adopting a Hongik lifestyle can really benefit me and what that means for me. So I think that is linked to consciousness. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Do you think we should talk about individually or as a society first?
I think maybe individual and then work our way at bigger.
That sounds good. So individually, and I can speak a little bit from experience.
Okay.
Individually, Hongik for me is actually a way to have less stress and more happiness and more confidence. As somebody who is interested in volunteering and helping others and creating a society where more people can be healthy and happy, I feel a lot of stress if I'm not clear on how to help. How about you? I mean, I want to do good, but sometimes I'm not sure what can be good. So when I learned about Hongik and both what is good for me and what is good for other people and how that's a practice, it really gave me more confidence to be active in life instead of trying to hold myself back. I'll give you an example. For the environment, I don't want to create more waste. I don't want to drive my car, like do all these things. And at the same time, I want to live. I want to experience things. So when I'm Hongik, I find, okay, it's not just about having the rule like create zero waste, although that's a great thing. It's about what is my bigger activity? Am I helping people as a society? Can we reduce waste? As a society, can we care for each other? Because that's going to be more important about saving the earth and saving energy than anything I can do individually. So Hongik mindset actually gave me a lot less stress because I didn't have to judge every single thing I'm doing and say, this determines whether I'm a good person or a bad person. So I think that's something that helped me a lot.
So how does Hongik change consciousness? I really like this idea of changing consciousness because there's so many things that are happening, and we're also trying to find answers to so many of life's problems and society's problems. And one of the things that Brain Education recently talks about, and Ilchili, our founder, talks about, is this change in consciousness to help these societal problems. So now that's going from the individual, let's work a little bit bigger. So how does Hongik mindset benefit a society? I
think the first question that some people may have is, what exactly are we talking about when we say consciousness?
That's true.
So
right.
There's
what is that? Is that mind?
Many different ways and implications of consciousness. But one of the practical ways is my consciousness is kind of the fundamental information and identity. Who am I and what is important? How do I judge the world? How do I interpret the world? There's a fundamental kind of structure of the mind and information. It's like the lens that we look through. And we can look at many different things with the same lens. Ultimately, there's not a lot of change. But if we change the lens, we can suddenly see much farther, much closer. We can see a whole different world. And often the solutions to our challenges are seen from changing consciousness, not just looking at a different information through the same consciousness. I don't know if that's really clear, but consciousness is like the lens we look through. And when we change that, we can see a whole different set of opportunities. So it's like kind of like the level of our mindset that we're operating from. Yeah. One way of talking about consciousness is expanding. expanding consciousness or brightening consciousness.
Brightening.
If you're looking through a lens and the aperture is really small, there's not enough light.
Right, too dark.
Everything looks dark and you don't see any beauty, no possibility.
Yeah, and you only see this much.
And you only see this much. You open it up, you expand it, or you brighten it, you can see a lot more and you can do a lot more.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. So consciousness is important and it's a thing that we can develop. But it's not just understanding. It's not just conscious learning. That's the difference. And that's why we do physical and energy work as well, because it takes more than just learning a new piece of information to really change consciousness.
Okay. So how does changing consciousness, which is tied into this Hongik life set and mentality, how does changing consciousness and Hongik, how does that affect any change in the world?
In the world, we're more and more aware of what our leaders are choosing each and every day. And I think one thing that becomes more apparent is that even leaders, a lot of them make choices based on very personal emotion.
Yeah.
Personal feeling.
Gain,
personal
money,
desire.
Lobbying.
And you can't say that that's like wrong. Nobody is, perfectly immune to emotion. But the question is, how can we make better choices? How can our leaders make better choices?
Benefit more people, not just their family.
And then how can all of us, the population, ask for better choices and better results? One of the ways is expanding consciousness. Think about a child. Now, we imagine that children are really pure and beautiful, but they can also be really, really selfish. In fact, that's natural and healthy for them, is to be really selfish when they're young. They need safety, they need energy, they need love. So they're very selfish about those things. But as we grow up, we don't need to be quite as selfish. We can trust, we can share, we can learn to make harmony. And that's a natural process of growth. And in a way, that's consciousness expansion. And even though we turn 18, it doesn't mean we're done growing. Our consciousness can keep growing and expanding throughout our lives until we're 80 years old, 100 years old, and beyond. We can keep growing.
So a big thing that we talk about in brain education is changing consciousness, as David mentioned, changing consciousness as the root of solving life's problems. Because somebody who is operating from that higher mindset, from that wider lens that you were talking about, and seeing more things and acting and behaving in a way that benefits more people with a bigger mindset, if you're operating from that kind of energy, it's impossible to behave in a way that jeopardizes a certain race or puts a certain group of people down, because you're seeing in such a bigger light. So it seems like our issues of social inequality, politics, poverty, disease, homelessness, environmental destruction, war, famine, all of these things come from people, like many people around the world out of the 7 billion, operating from a small outlook on life and looking to only benefit a small group, maybe their own family or their own political party or their own something, rather than the whole. Yeah,
because they don't see that it's a possibility, not because they're evil.
Right. Because they've only taught to look this much, maybe from their parents, or even just, I feel like society in general, this success-driven society that we kind of are going back to from the beginning of this life, this success and competition-driven society from a very young age, we're taught to look only this much so that I succeed, my people benefit, I do better. Who cares about this other person? If I'm doing well, then this person, or whatever.
Even if I care about them, too bad, only one person can win, or only one country can win. Bigger consciousness says, even though it's hard, we can achieve harmony together, peace together, health together.
Right. So David mentioned at the beginning, or not at the beginning, but during this little segment, that how his personal life changed from Hongik.
Right.
So I wanted to give a short example of how my life also changed from Hongik. So as I mentioned, I'm Korean, but I've never heard of Hongik before brain education. I've never even heard of this word before, right? Because it's not something that modern Korean people talk about often. But when I first have heard about Hongik, I'm naturally somebody who gives, because I'm the oldest of 3 kids. And so I was the big sister all the time. So from a young age, I had to yield, I had to share, I had to give, and I had to you know, even in my friend group, like I'm the like caretaker, the giver, the person who like calls everybody, brings everyone together kind of person.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that made me feel good. It made me feel like I was helping people, but I would be lying if I said that I didn't ever feel like, what about me? You know, that's a thing that I also said very often. I'm taking care of all these people, but who's taking care of me? And then trying to find somebody who will take care of me too. So, and that's the only kind of like service or care that I was taught by society. I didn't know how else to function besides give, 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 and then eventually just hope and pray that somebody will give me too.
Which is a tough state to be in.
It's not good because then you're constantly seeking approval and attention from other people.
And anxiety.
Who wants that? No one wants to live that way.
Nobody wants to stay there very long.
Yeah. So when I heard about Hongik, this idea of widely benefiting all life, which includes the people I love that I'm doing this for already, but also including myself, just hearing about that concept gave me comfort, gave me this like, oh, there's a way out for me to feel love too, to feel cared too, that there's an idea that it goes beyond sacrifice, that encompasses a wider group, a wider kind of perspective that I've been seeking for. So Hongik, I really felt was the answer that I've been looking, because it benefits the people that I already was loving and benefiting, but it also made me realize that I'm valuable too, that I'm a precious being too, which I had never really thought about that before. All the people I loved were precious and they deserve love, but I never thought that I too was precious and I too deserve love. That was a very foreign idea to me.
So important, because we know that you can't really give that healing love unless you can have it inside of you.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're talking about, is you got to be fulfilled inside. And the other thing is that you have great power when you're full of that energy, when you're full of that love. So things are possible that didn't seem possible before. I always think when we talk about war and poverty and famine and all these problems with the environment, it seems like, oh, they're too big, there's no solution. But if you look at it, there's actually a lot of good solutions out there with technology and science and certain governments doing different things, but we don't choose them. We don't focus on them because we're looking through that lens again that's different. We don't even think it's a possibility. So if we want to change the world, we have the capability, I think, to make a lot better situation for many people and life on this planet. Right. But consciousness is the key to actually seeing it and then doing it.
And because Hongik elevates consciousness, this is why we titled this live, Hongik, a Korean Enlightenment philosophy.
Right. Enlightenment is not some separate thing. Enlightenment is all about oneness.
So let me take some comments. So Maria, you are right. Evil grows when good people don't do nothing. That's true. Yeah. And then Hongik is my life. Hongik, I totally resonate with that. When I was always giving so much love, I'm just realizing I matter and I have to love myself. Yes.
Right. Really important to practice that.
Yeah. There are so many of us givers out there who forget that you are precious too.
And then sometimes it looks like, why are the takers so successful? Why are the takers, the people who look like they're only concerned with themselves, why are they in power? Right. But it's up to those of us who want something different to also have power. And that's where Hongik means connecting to myself. If your mind and awareness are outside yourself, there's no way to gather that power and energy, which results in confidence and influence.
Right. Yeah, and so nice to see you, Brittany. I remember you, Brittany.
Great comment.
Okay, so David, so people in the audience, they seem to resonate with Hongik and they see that it's a good vision to benefit all life. So where can we practice Hongik? Is there a specific like training center? Is there like a book I need to read? Is there an online course, or what do I need to do?
What does it mean?
Yeah, to practice this into my life. It sounds great.
So as with many things, we can understand it right away, and most of us agree with it. You know, yeah, it sounds great. What does it mean to actually expand your consciousness and live more Hongik? I think the key point is it's about starts with your mind and body. This idea that Hongik lives inside of us very naturally. It's not some artificial, idealistic principle that you need to just think about. So connecting your mind and body, being more present, being able to relax, feel what's inside your body is a good starting point, very important starting point. So meditation, yoga, energy, meditation, and breathing, all of these practices can be very helpful. And you got to realize that they're not for the purpose of just being more flexible or even just being more relaxed. They're about connecting to oneness inside, which is where Hongik spirit comes from naturally.
I like that. I like that a lot.
So where can you do this? Now, in some sense, you can do this at home. You can do this anywhere where you can practice with your body. Obviously, BETV, this channel, has a lot of practices for your mind and body. Exercise, meditation, movement, all kinds of things. So just by yourself at home, you can turn that on and you can practice along with the video.
Yeah, and so going off of what David said is that these practices in brain education, yes, on the surface, it may seem like, oh, it's just to make me exercise and become healthy and slim down.
Which is good.
Yeah, which of course you need it as the first level of health. But the true reason why we become healthy first is so that my healthiness, my state of being healthy can elevate my consciousness, and then I can act from a place that is of Hongik and I can be of service to other people.
And very simply, if you want to be healthy, being healthy takes some work. Let's say we've been working a tough job at a desk and our body posture is not good. In order to change that, you're going to need to work hard for a couple weeks, a couple months to strengthen and fix your body.
Yes.
It's not comfortable to be healthy. It's actually more uncomfortable to do the work to be healthy than it is to take a pill and temporarily feel better without working on it. But if your purpose is, I want to be Hongik, then you can't just take that pill and ignore your symptoms. You have to focus on being healthy and do the work. So it's actually very motivating. And ultimately, when I worked in the Body and Brain Center, now I'm at our headquarters, but in the Body and Brain Center and working with a lot of people, the ones who made the most benefit had a vision of using their body and their life for a bigger purpose, not just to feel a little more comfortable, because as I said, working out and improving your body is uncomfortable. So that bigger purpose is what motivated them through the discomfort.
So just as you can practice Hongik using the contents on our channel, you can also practice it at any of the entities and places that are affiliated with our brain education practice, which Body and Brain is another big place. And David is in charge of Body and Brain TV. So that YouTube channel also has a lot of content that to create health in your life, how to practice a Hongik life for creating a bigger change in society. They have those kinds of contents too. So brain education, Body and Brain, these are two probably the most immediate ways that you can get involved and practice Hongik.
That's right. And then you can take those and why not share them with somebody else? Most of the BE practices and Body and Brain classes are very easy. You don't have to be super fit. You don't have to sweat buckets to get a benefit. You can do some pretty easy. So even people who are dealing with a limitation physically, or they don't have a lot of time, you can get a lot of benefit because they focus on your brain as well as moving your body.
Right. And never underestimate the power of how, if you practice Hongik in your life, you also inspire other people to be that way too. Because even if people don't specifically say it out loud, they can feel a change in your energy. They can feel a change in the way, because your mindset is different, your consciousness is different, the way that you treat them.
I want to kind of mention that point again that you made. It's really important. If you are somebody who wants to help others or influence change in the world, you may have a lot of desperate desire. You want to see this change and you know it's the right change. It can make you very emotional. If you're one of those people who is desperate, I wish, why aren't we doing better? Then I really want to encourage you, focus inside. Take some of that energy back and that frustration back and really just let go of frustration about what other people are doing and just connect to yourself. What I found is even a little bit, if you can achieve that, people notice.
Right.
People start to listen more. They start to work together with you instead of resisting everything that you want. And that can be the difference between mental health and a lot of stress. And it can be the difference between succeeding in your efforts and feeling like nobody's helping. Go inside.
Mm-hmm. And then tell more people about this idea. Because Hongik is something that's very new, especially to Western culture. So maybe even you watching this YouTube live, this is your first time hearing about Hongik. So just as I shared, when I just even first heard about it, it gave me a little shift in, oh, wow, I need to take care of myself too, because I too am precious and I too am worthy of love. Your speaking about Hongik can inspire that kind of shift, a small but very important shift in mindset and consciousness for the people who are listening to this idea, for them to wake up and be like, wow, I am a precious human being that needs care and love too.
Mm-hmm. You got to be willing to, it's interesting because you got to be a dreamer. You have to be idealistic, but at the same time, very realistic. You know, you have to believe that we have this inside, because as I said, we're not always connected with that feeling of oneness. Absolutely. Actually, there's a comment from Bill, which I think is really interesting. I gave up on pure motivation. Selfish altruism is my thing now. I accept that doing good things inherently benefits me, even if that is just feeling good about having done a good thing. It's kind of like fake it until you make it. Consciousness work, in a way, is sometimes fake it until you make it. It doesn't mean it's fake. It means we start at a certain level and we want to go deeper. We have to believe it and act like it, and then we'll feel more of it. Not, oh, I don't feel it yet, so I'm not going to do anything yet. It's the opposite way around. I believe it and I take action on it, and then the real energy comes. Right. And then everybody else says, wow, you're so amazing. How are you like that? Well, I decided and then started to act that way and trust it. And then the energy becomes real.
Right. And going off of that and what Bill just commented in the chat is one really big way to practice Hongik is to practice self-care.
Self-care.
Yeah, practice self-care, because Hongik benefits all life. That means the people you love, but also yourself. So if you act in a way already that benefits other people in your life, please now shift so that you act in a way that benefits you as well. And a big first step to doing that is to practice self-care, true self-care.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we already naturally have this mindset and idea that helping others is a good thing, but it takes a slightly different brain cell and a slightly different brain circuit to then think about taking care of yourself, to truly taking care of yourself. So what are some ways that people can practice self-care?
These days, we are so busy.
Really?
I'm a little busy. I think you're very busy too. Just taking time, like sticking to your plan to take 10 minutes for breathing and meditation out of your day, or at the end of the day, before you go to bed, making sure you give yourself 15 minutes to clear and connect before you fall asleep. Just keeping that promise to yourself can be a huge change. And then what you do during that time, of course, you can do, as I said, some meditation, some breathing. You can reflect on your day. You can set your vision for tomorrow, or you can do some stretching to make your body feel better. Those are things that I like to do for self-care. How about you?
Yeah, I love taking time in the mornings to come back into myself, because as you mentioned, when we're busy, our minds are always outside. So we operate from a place where our mind is not home. And so the way that I practice my self-care and the way that has worked for me is I find some time in my day, like you said, to come back home to myself. So I do some like tapping. So we shared about brainwave vibration, where you tap your lower abdomen and shake your head side to side, or just tapping your body like this to bring your mind inside. And that has set the tone of my day way differently than if I just rush up and get up and wash my face and hurry out the door. It really sets the tone for the day to be completely different. That's something that has worked for me.
That's really true. If you haven't done that and you think about, oh, it sounds good, but I don't think it'll make that much difference, try it. You'd be surprised by how different it feels when you just do that simple thing. That's consciousness, different from understanding. A lot of people hear about meditation and and body and brain education, and they think it sounds good, but I've tried things like that before. Don't trust your thinking. Don't trust your memory. Sometimes you had a good experience years ago, but then I don't remember what the feeling really was. Try it again. You're going to be surprised at how much it helps.
Yeah. And Maria, thank you for your comment. Your comment gave me real joy. So I want to express that to you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay, so where can we learn these things, David? We talked about some really great gems of wisdom and gems of awakening. So if you feel inspired by watching this, where can we practice?
You can practice. Well, first of all, we talked about online with YouTube. You can practice anywhere with BETV and Body and Brain TV. But practicing in person, even if it's difficult sometimes, it's worth a 20, 30, 40-minute drive, because our brains and our consciousness learn a lot by feeling the energy of other people, especially if they are also practicing brain education, mindfulness. We learn a lot more than just through our eyes, or more than just reading something or listening to something, is by physically being in the same space. So I recommend, if you can find a body and brain center near you, to go there and meet with one of the instructors, because these instructors are people who are practicing regularly every day. And through that, their body and their consciousness and energy develop something. It's not about being smarter or better than anybody else. It's just about a habit and a community where we practice these things and ingrain them at an unconscious level in the body. There's something, especially if you're sensitive, you will learn a lot right away, even without words. So if you can check out a body and brain center, I highly recommend that.
Right. And that's where we both started out.
That's right.
Learning about brain education and its philosophy as a body and brain center. But if you don't have a body and brain center, then Brain Education TV, Body and Brain TV is a great resource to start.
There's also retreats that you can go on.
Right. We have retreats at Sedona Mago Center, or if you're on the West Coast, this is in Sedona, Arizona. If you're on the East Coast, we have a East Coast retreat center called Honors Haven Retreat. So either one of those could work out well too.
They utilize brain education in their activities and programs as well.
Right. Yes.
So you can find more and more places and organizations and people using brain education around the world. But these YouTube channels and body and brain centers and those retreat centers have been doing it for many, many years. So have a lot of experience and people who are very professional in sharing it.
Yeah. So can you guys, before we close this live today, would you share with us what you feel about Hongik? Is this your first time hearing about it? Do you feel inspired to practice Hongik now in your life? If you have some questions that are lingering about Hongik, anything that is on your mind about the topic as we wrap up, then is there anything else you want to add, David, before we close today?
Well, while people are typing about their feelings or awakening about Hongik, I want to emphasize two things. The first is, keep talking about Hongik. Keep talking about it. And if people come at you and they say, oh, that's wishy-washy, idealistic, new age, blah, blah, blah. What do they call it? Like kumbaya. They're like, oh, yeah, kumbaya, whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, I understand the cynicism. I understand the resentment. But where are we going if not towards more Hongik? What is actually hopeful? Is it just like my country is going to be okay and have more military defense, and then anybody who we don't like? There's no hope in that. Yes, it's practical, but talk about Hongik. Keep sharing it. There's going to be more reality from it. And then the other thing that I want to emphasize is, don't just talk about it. Really practice self-care, like Linda said, with your body. Take time out. Get some help, meet with other people who practice. So talk about the ideal of Hongik and then also practice with your body. Just do those two things.
I really like what you said that like really shocked my brain is, where are we going if not Hongik?
Yeah.
Like,
do we really want to go somewhere else?
Right. As a society, as a world, where should we go if not Hongik?
What are we fighting for if not Hongik? Are we fighting for going back to the 1890s? Where every country is just like fighting for itself and taking over other countries? Does anybody really want that? I don't think so. Even the people who believe that that's the reality, the necessity, I don't think they actually want that. They just believe that there's nothing else possible. When I've talked with them.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's going to give me a lot to think about. I think that's a perfect way to kind of close with a seed of thought for all of you. Where are we going if not Hongik?
Yeah. So let's keep talking about it.
Yes. All right, so we're just about to wrap up with this live. So thank you all so much for joining. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our channel, Brain Education TV. We have more lives like this and more content that talk about the Hongik philosophy, brain education, how to connect with yourself. Lots of good tips, exercises, and pearls of wisdom that I think are very necessary in our 21st century. And then also please check out Body and Brain TV, which David is the host of.
Yeah, and then recently, those of you here at BTV, I think from the toe tapping video, you saw a suggestion to head over. So I saw a lot of you came over and visited Body and Brain TV and saw Courtney Nim's toe tapping video there as well. So that's really nice. Let's keep collaborating.
Yeah, so make sure you check out, like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications on his channel too, because he has really good tips on there as well.
Thank you. And let's keep getting together. Let's keep having this conversation. And we love hearing your ideas too.
Yes. And then, as we mentioned, if you live by one, please visit a Body and Brain Center, because that is the best place to start. That's where we started and have grown and awakened to more of these practices from the Body and Brain Center. So if you get a chance, if you live by one, then I highly recommend start there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you all so much. Thank you, Maria, Colette, Judy, Justina, Bill, Mukesh, Brittany, Semi-Country Living. Oh, we got a donation. Thank you. Thank you, Judy.
I'm imitating the exercising laughing pear. It's got like an exercise headband, right?
And it's got a little like leaf ponytail too, you know.
So if you want to see us do animated dances, then you can. No. Okay, maybe it's not an exercising animated pair. I don't know.
Thank you so much, Judy.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, BTV.
Yeah, thank you all for joining today. Please stay tuned for another live. We'll do more lives with David. We at least have one a month. So please stay tuned for that if Christian's laughing. We're glad we can make you laugh and learn at the same time.
Yeah. So next time, super chat more. You're going to see more.
Yeah. Ha, ha, ha.
Unless you don't want to see that.
Yeah, unless you send a different emoji, then we'll copy whatever emoji that one is.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all so much.